Welcome to the Get In.It Podcast, episode 1. We're joined with Russel Grant. Quite a busy guy.
I'm episode 1?
Yes.
Jeez, that's an honor.
So we've done an episode 0, which was basically the test run.
Okay.
And then we decided to go full on ahead and keep it like close to home.
So we have a helicopter that was flying over our intro, but I think it'll give us nice rumble.
Some ambiance.
Some ambiance.
Exactly.
If you need to re-record it, just let me know.
No, I think it'll be fine. So we're here in the Bioscope, if you're wondering why these seats look so amazing. By the way, I love these seats.
Thank you, man. We are so proud of this as an idea. We when we started in 2010, we got given these like church seats, and they were sort of pretty rigid, and we knew they were going to sort of fall apart. And it just got us going. And then we knew we had to sort of solve the problem, and we had to kind of come up with a solution. We'd heard about a cinema in New York that used car seats, and actually when I was there went and checked it out.
Yeah.
But they just sort of had it haphazard. They just sort of had like a box, and then they just sort of shoved the car seat on top. They just didn't do anything to fit it.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really think much about it again. And then we saw a guy in the neighborhood in Maboneng with that did car seats as a business.
Like reupholstering them.
Yeah, he's like, I provide car seats for the taxi industry or whatever. And we were like, what? And we like pulled over. And he had he had some of these, and we just were like, can we get 60? He was like so chuffed.
Exactly.
And then we sort of figured out a way to like sort of weld them and build these bases, and we just thought like that's great, because the neighborhood that we were in for the Bioscope is very, in the old spot was very industrial, and where the Bioscope was used to be a panel beaters. So we kind of like wanted to reflect that neighborhood and reflect that kind of energy a bit. We didn't want to kind of create this plush cine prestige kind of cinema, and we thought like these are good and strong and they're ergonomic, and so it's a cool idea.
No, dude, I love it. And also having the little table in the front.
Yeah, so now in version 2.0 we've got this table, which you know, what I love so much about this version of the cinema is that it comes with like 10 years of like everything we wish we could have done in the old spot. And the one thing we really wanted was to create some kind of a place to put and hold things. And of course, we're quite used to as South Africans having our stuff on the side.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why it can't be in the front. So we wanted to build these, and they also work for sort of notes and files, and they could be for your feet. We don't care. So we're very happy with how these have turned out.
I think you like killed two birds with one stone, because now you have a place to put your drinks down and everything, and you also have a place to put your feet down without kicking someone in the back.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because people don't really have a footrest in other cinemas. But the idea was that, you know, as much as possible since day one, and now even more, we want to do this kind of like dinner cinema. And we want to have this culture of like food and proper food and themed food, and so just like not just popcorn and snacks, like to actually have stuff. So this just helps build that kind of potential for us to take it further, you know, which is what we've always wanted to do.
Like just the fact that you guys are actually like trying to sort of innovate and add new things in such a like set in stone industry, it feels like. Yeah,
that's the thing, and we actually had a few people sort of give us some advice in the beginning, in the early days, and there was one guy that ran a cinema in town. I don't think he's around anymore, and the one thing that he said was like, you got to just always be innovating. And that kind of stuck with us, and we were like,
okay. I came through last week Wednesday, I think, for the first time, watched Parasite. I had a panini. Lovely. It was amazing. Like,
lovely.
It completely changed my mind on what a movie theater is.
Totally. And when we opened in 2010, the idea of like having a beer was like kind of an innovative thing for South Africans.
I was shocked when I went to the bar and they were like, you want a beer? I can have a beer at the movie? That's
I mean, like nowadays sort of some of the mainstream cinemas are getting a bit more like sort of wisening up to that and sort of allowing that. But But they, the traditional South African sort of shopping mall cinema really wasn't interested in the sort of 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds because they're actually the hardest market to kind of get to come and watch movies, because they're starting a career, they're starting families, like they don't go out. In a
personally,
way.
The last thing I watched before Parasite on Wednesday was Deadpool 5 years ago.
Interesting.
And the thing before that was like Jackass 3D.
Yeah.
But now I already want to come back this week.
That's amazing. So those cinemas have always very traditionally focused on kids, and then perhaps sort of more retiree, more like got more time on your hands, kind of like older folk. And then we came in and just kind of went for the sort of toughest market. But that was kind of the point. With one little cinema, we can do that. I wouldn't build a whole nationwide chain on it. But, for this one cinema, our goal has just always been like something different to do on a night out. Like, if you've got that time, like, we can be something different. We can be like, oh, you're going to watch an old movie that's a tearjerker and you're going to get pocket packet tissues and an ice cream, or like you're gonna eat dumplings and watch like a 1970s samurai film, like like we'll be those guys.
But I mean, also getting artists and comedians in, like doing the sort of live stuff, that's
so that's what we've got
before.
Sort of set up here now. Is Loiso Gola. It's so amazing, and it's just so interesting to see how we're tracking our way through 2020. So obviously something we all know is lost is the live performance, right? So we know we haven't had that. But what's interesting is that for comedians, that club or just playing shows and performing is like a gym. For a musician, you can sit at home in your underpants and like practice your songs and hope people are going to like them when they eventually hear them.
Yeah.
But for a comedian, you need to gym. You need to be in front of people. You need to learn, like, oh, that doesn't land.
Yeah.
Oh, the second night I tried that. That works. And so they have to hash out this material, and of course they haven't had the opportunity to do that for months and months.
I didn't think about that at all.
So he's got some big things coming up that he needs to like practice for.
Yeah.
So when he walked in here and saw the cinema, he was like, can I do shows? And I was like, yeah, let's do them.
Amazing.
And we'll do the social distancing and everything will be fine. But like, he gets to gym, he gets to practice.
Yeah.
And it's great. And of course, theaters are allowed, but putting on an actual production is just next to impossible. And it's just not feasible. Cinema, it's feasible because all you got to do is you just got to press play.
Yeah,
but
it's not like 5 people that need to get paid.
Well, for theater, it's like costume, makeup, guy, in the fly bars, like the front of house person, the front of house sound, front of house lights, like the cast.
Yeah, that's
insane. Spreading out, water vapor as they project their thing. So like stand-up is easy. It's one dude, So thankfully we can do that, and we've got a whole week of that ahead of us. Crazy. Which is really exciting.
So then another major thing that you do that I'm a very big fan of, Limited Edish, dude.
Hey.
So for those of you that haven't heard of Limited Edish yet, it's a clothing brand started by Russel.
Yeah.
Collaborating with artists basically around the world to make sort of limited runs of these awesome tees. I think you're wearing one today.
I am. I pretty much wear my own clothes now because there's not really much point in buying new clothes, because basically the what started it all was me just wanting to see certain t-shirts in the world, certain clothes in the world.
Couldn't find what you were looking for, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think I sort of fall into a category of a very particular kind of person who isn't necessarily into brands. Big sort of big visible brands.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily that important to me. I appreciate quality of good brands. And
like a sort of concise aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what I mean is just like a good brand that could be subtle would perhaps be my kind of cup of tea. But also, I really enjoy the clothes, especially the t-shirts that have a story to them. And I've been lucky enough with the band to travel to places like Japan where they're very merch crazy, and you come back with these t-shirts that no one could ever have gotten here. And they've got these incredible stories, and this is this band, and you must really discover them, and this is this,
that's a whole
concept.
Have you guys been to Japan 5 times now?
It's been 5 tours.
That's insane. When was the first one?
Can't remember. It's almost been every year, give or take 1 year. So it's been, the first tour was probably about 6 years ago.
Hectic.
And also then in Japan was a shop called Granif. That was basically my sort of heaven, which was like this pretty much t-shirt store, pretty much kind of doing the same thing, which is that the brand isn't big and each t-shirt is different, but it's not sort of silly jokey tees or sort of pop culture stuff. It's artworks, and it's illustrations, and they're amazing t-shirts.
Okay.
And so I loved that. And then as a band, we wanted to take like a little hiatus in 2018, just kind of reassess our life.
You guys were going hard for long there.
Totally. And that's the thing, is that we were sort of, our lives were having to kind of fit into the band. And then we just thought, before this balloon bursts and we all hate each other, and we kind of need to just deflate the pressure on this thing, and we need to come back at this where the band works around us. And of course we're not going to play as much, or we're not going to produce as much, but what we do play will be shows we love. And so in this break, like, some of the guys like started their own company.
So Alistair has his like production company going, and
so it was
the whole cinematography thing.
So for L, that was a chance to start Cockles, which was his like creative side project, which was really great. And I think he needed that break, and he needed that ability to sort of go, well, if I think this song's cool, I get to put it out. No one can contest me,
Cockles warrants a whole podcast on its own. That's
totally. I mean, we must get him in. So, not that tensions were ever bad with Shortstraw, but creatively, there's something really great about collaborating with 4 other dudes, and then creatively, there's something great about like having no one to tell you what to do. And so I think it was quite cool for him to kind of have that opportunity as well. Tom got the chance to like just soar as a cinematographer. He was really struggling because the band was booking months in advance, and his gigs were coming in weeks in advance, and he was just like, dudes, I'm these people are going to stop phoning me. Like, I'm turning them down because we've got these shows booked, and I don't want to say no because we've already said yes to as a band. And so it was this little conundrum that we had to solve, which was like, okay, you'll just try your best, and if this is a gig that you just can't say no to, we're not going to be the band that's going to tell you like, no, you can't do it.
But I think it's a different thing as well when it's not just like some like fast food job or something. It's actually something you're also passionate about outside.
No, totally. And he loves it. And I've said to so many people, like, Tom in many ways is like our Keith Richards. Like, you wouldn't want to go to a Rolling Stone show and not see Keith Richards. As much as Jagger is the frontman, like, we're one of those bands where it's like, I'd like to believe like he's a feature on his own. So we wouldn't want to ever replace him, but the idea is that if he has to kind of do a particular job that he just can't say no to, we'll have like an understudy that could kind of replace him for that show. But so far we haven't had to do that. But the fact that he knows he's got someone and he's got this understanding with us, like, just has him live with far less anxiety and pressure in his life. So he just, from the moment we took that break, he just didn't stop working, and he's built this incredible career for himself.
That's amazing. Man.
Jake left the sort of agency world that he was kind of always in and started his own agency. He was always in sort of digital marketing and strategy and stuff. So he kind of started his own thing, which was cool. And so so for me, I kind of wanted to start another business. I didn't want to do another band. and I just knew that sort of e-commerce was something cool that I wanted to kind of get in on while it was still sort of bubbling on the surface in South Africa. And I just knew the timing was kind of cool for that. And then bumbled around with a couple of different ways of looking at it. And am I going to be a merch company? Am I going to take other people's merch? Am I going to service other companies and make merch for them? And then I was like, I'm going to do creative. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to make my own products. You know, the whole the conversation was, am I going to be a Pick and Pay or am I going to be a Woolworths? You know, is it going to be a store that's going to take other brands, or am I going to make my own tomato sauce?
So you make sure that tomato sauce is a tomato sauce you're proud of.
And that's what's kind of great about the Woolworths, and that's kind of how they can be a brand that keeps that quality, is because they are seeing it all through and they're not taking in other people's stuff. So I was like, I want to make my own t-shirts. And very simple. And it was so funny when I started telling people the idea. I was like, this is such a painfully simple idea.
It almost seems like there must be a reason why not to do it.
That it's so simple. And I think a lot of people were expecting, when I said, oh, you know, I'm going to make t-shirts, that they thought I was going to make like the man, the legend, you know, 100% boer.
I'm with her.
Yeah. No dogs allowed. But that's not the point. The point was, I found myself, and I remember having a conversation with, I think, one of the other guys in the band, where I was like, you have to use your connections as a band, as a person who's in the band that we're in. It would be stupid not to.
Yeah.
Because if we've gotten anything, it's those connections
and friendships and like collaborations and things.
Relationships. When you sort of appear on Nick Hammond's show on 5FM for like the 20th time, like he starts becoming a friend.
Yeah.
And also, like, on another personal note, you sort of struggle to kind of maintain actual proper friendship. So like these people kind of become your friends. But there was a point where I was like, I just know so many amazing, talented people, especially in these kind of creative industries, where it's like, I have to work with them. Like, that's the point. That's what I should be doing. And so many of them today are like producing incredible work. It goes up on Instagram, you know, a couple hundred people like it, and then it's done.
But that's something I've been thinking about quite a lot. Like visual artists, it's so difficult.
And there's so many people now, you know, like the way, like how you can produce certain work on like a sort of iPad today, like it's just incredible.
On a cell phone
textures even. And just like the whole illustration world just becomes so much easier, and there's so many more people doing it, which is amazing. But it just all gets a little lost and forgotten. And I love being that guy that like picks, like, you know, the illustration sort of 20 rows down, and it's like, let's make that. Let's put that on a tee. And then they're like, cool. You know, even if someone was doing something almost exactly like me as Limited Edish, because here we are saying it's this painfully simple idea that just doesn't seem to be something that's done by people, at least in our little world here in South Africa. Even if someone were to do the exact same thing, it's like at the end of the day, the relationships with the artists and the artworks that we then choose will then ultimately be like, what is my IP and what is special. And so like,
it's like the logistics aren't the thing. The thing is what you put into it, which is those connections and that
it's
love
the stories,
and that art.
and it's like, what are we, you know, are we digging even deeper in the crate, literally or figuratively, to find that one artwork that's like would really be great?
Yeah.
Are we fostering a good relationship with someone that encourages them to draw more, and then their fifth doodle is just exceptional? You know, so that kind of stuff's exciting, and I think that's great. And I just, you know, we're not pigeonholing ourselves into one particular style.
Yeah.
Which obviously a lot of people are doing, which is cool, and totally do that. That makes lots of sense. But I just love the idea that like one of ours could be very different from the next. And
it's amazing, dude. Like, one last thing I've been curious about, I just want to hear your thoughts on it. The late night arcade. How did that whole thing?
So the late night arcade is just another one of those concepts that have been born out of my brain. And what I mean by that is like, I've sort of just always wanted to, especially with the Bioscope, the agenda was always give someone something. Sorry, just flew into my ear. Okay, so when it comes to the late night arcade, it's just another one of those ideas, very similar to the Bioscope, where it was like, I just have this agenda to give someone living in Joburg something different to do on a night out. Like, what do we know we can do? We can always go to a bar, we can always go to a restaurant, we can always have a house party with our friends. But like, what's interesting, you know? And like, a concept night at the Bioscope is an interesting thing to check out and see and try. It's that old movie from the 90s, or like, we got to sing along, or we got to dress up and, you know, do these things. And so I stumbled into the late night arcade. Basically, funny enough, it was across the street from where we are now, on this roof, on this top floor of this building that's just across the street from us, was a tech company making sort of VR content and augmented reality content. And they had the office space on the top floor of this building. And they had every intention of growing their business to the other parts of this floor, but until then they realized that they were actually sitting with a space that could work as a really great events venue. So they called it the Birdhouse, and I knew a guy that worked for this company, and I just went up and visited them one day. And there's of course this incredible view of Joburg, and especially if it's a building that isn't in a typical part of town, so it's not like it was in town, it's just outside. That's where we are now. What made this view special is that you were kind of looking at town in a way that you kind of hadn't seen it before, but you were also kind of looking out to the suburbs. Anyway, so long story was like, the original thought was, we can do screenings up here of films. It would be a cool venue to watch a movie. And then I was like, they were these tech dudes who just for their own amusement set up, I think, the game Beat Saber. Have you ever played Beat Saber?
I haven't played it yet, but I've seen it and I really want to.
So it's like, it's one of those games you put on a VR goggles, and with the controllers you basically are swiping like a lightsaber to certain objectives that are coming at you. So it's kind of like Fruit Ninja. It's
also very musical, like rhythmic.
So it's like Fruit Ninja meets Guitar Hero. So it's like to the beat you've got to like swipe. And literally, I say not everyone, but like literally no one's got VR goggles at home.
No one's got a computer to run this stuff.
No one's got so until that happens, like, how will people get a chance to play this game? Like, how are people going to be like? Because when I played that game, I was like, what a fucking time to be alive. What a cool game. And then I was like, you guys have got all this stuff. And then like just the cogs like turned, and it was like, okay, let's have like a games night. And I was like, oh cool, we can have like these new games that people don't know, the old games that people have forgotten, like the arcade stuff. We can get those old arcade machines, and then we can also do like, there's a growing, like, it's such an exciting like kind of industry, which is the idea of the indie game, where people now, with a few years behind them now, are putting out really great indie games, and they're interesting and they're different or they're localized. So these guys were actually the people that were working on the game Butt Fighter, which is the perfect, and I know In.It did some printing for it, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so Butt Fighter is the perfect example, which is like, it doesn't have to be made by this big Nintendo company that is kind of weird Asian content.
And also it doesn't need like crazy 3D graphics and everything.
Yeah, and it's not about this, LA, American, New York sensibility. Like, you can make Butt Fighter. It's going to take you time, it's going to take you quite a lot of money and resources, but it's possible, and that's possible today. So we thought, that's it. And then I discovered that thelatenigharcade.com was available, and I was like,
that's actually amazing that was available.
This is a no-brainer. You either got to come up with, I remember hearing this from a talk with a guy, I think he was one of the heads of Google in Africa. He was like, you either come up with a word like flume or Skype or, you know, you either got to like make a word, or if you're selling beds, you got to get beds.com.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like you either got to be like on the nail, which for us was maybe with the Bioscope was a combination of both.
Yeah.
Where it was like we want to play with that word that people don't know, and that was a very uncool word at a time, like to say, oh, you're going to the Bioscope, like the Bioscopes. That was what like your sort of grandmother said, and you're like, it's called the movies.
Yeah.
You know. And then we were going to be in Newtown in the early days, so we were going to be called the Newtown Bioscope, and we thought that's a great name.
Yeah.
And then when you play around with the domains, when you discover the Bioscope is available, people are like, we'll do that.
Yeah, let's cut out the middleman.
Cut out the middleman, and then we just thought, if anyone tries to be another Bioscope, we'll always be the Bioscope.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's cool.
Dude, that's amazing.
So the fact that it was available, then, you know, the early versions of Limited Edish was going to be like sort of the merch. I think I found the merch stand.co.za, the merch stand.co.uk. There were kind of a few, like, it was all based on sort of what was available.
Yeah.
And then I was like limited edition, and then I was like Limited Edish. .com, because I always shoot for the .com.
Yeah.
And when that was available, I was like, done. Because that's the point.
Yeah.
The point of the whole thing is in the name.
And it's also just access, dude. If someone has to remember some strange, crazy thing with some weird like URL at the end, it's just gonna get lost in the mix.
No, totally. But so we managed 4 late night arcades. We realized the more we did them, the more someone will be like, this is an arcade. Like it's an arcade. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like the one at Rosebank.
Yeah.
Maybe give or take like different risky, bizarre games, but for the most part, someone will be like, "This is just an arcade,"
and know exactly what it is.
And well, the problem was like, would that be a bad thing? So we just thought, no, we got to do this every now and again, and it's got to be a special little like, almost like a sort of secret night.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to be, and you obviously got to advertise, but the idea being like it's just kind of special when it happens, and we sort of count them. Like we did that with Shortstraw when we put on these shows called Boosh. We counted them. We were like Boosh 1, Boosh 2, Boosh. So we've done 4 late night arcades.
Yeah, those shows are legendary still.
Thanks.
People still talk about them to this day.
Because there's heart and love and time and soul went into those shows. Same with the arcades, and they weren't just this sort of, you know, I fear that if it was regular and branded, like they would kind of lose their charm.
Dude, but the one thing really I can sort of see with everything you do is just you're doing things that make you happy. Like every time you talk about any of these concepts or any of these ideas, you get a smile over your face.
I think that's the idea, yeah.
And I think that's like what's sort of sets you up for everything to be a success. Like you believe in it. This is real. It's not like what do kids want these days.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think there's something really great about that. And I think the economy will always be perhaps a little small because it's all based on whether or not you think people will like the things that you like. But the quality of it would be real and true, and I really I've kind of, perhaps as a bit of a closer, like that's kind of where I've sort of reset myself in 2020 is just kind of just going back to like just what's the most important thing to you, and what's the most like heartwarming, I mean what's the most sort of fulfilling thing that you can do, and I'm lucky that I've like Limited Edition needed years. It needed like years and years to set up, and it needs consistency. I remember someone saying, how's it going? And I remember thinking like, someone could turn around and go like, it's slow, like in the beginning. Yeah. Or feel like you sort of need to pretend it's doing better than it is. But I remember going like, it's cool. Like it's fine. It just needs time.
Yeah. You gotta play the long game.
It just needs time, yeah. And it's with the Bioscope, like got off to this amazing start and had sort of 5 or 6 like great years in Mabuning, and it remained okay, but near the end in Mabuning it got harder and harder, and like 2019 was quite a bad year, and we like had to make this move, and so we moved here, and then you just like, okay, 10 years of experience and 10 years of being around, and 10 years of people hearing about us, and a whole bunch of people perhaps not wanting to ever come into town. Like now we're ready to like really go for it.
And without those 10 years, this wouldn't have been possible.
We would just be a new little concept, you know, a new little like thing we're trying out.
It's amazing, dude.
So it's like you just need that time, and you just need that thing. So I'm lucky that I've built all those things up. There was a moment when that sort of whole sort of like thing happened with that woman in the post office in Cape Town when she was killed, and there was the whole sort of gender-based violence kind of really like flared up, the Unene woman.
Yeah.
And it sort of felt like that whole thing just kind of rocked South Africa again, and it was kind of this evolution of the Me Too movement. But when that moment happened, it definitely felt like that time around there was a sort of a spotlight on men to go like, what can men do?
Yeah.
Because it's your time now.
Yeah.
The first part of Me Too was about women having the courage to stand up, and women knowing that there's other things, and it just felt like we were then at a point where it was like, okay, men, what are you doing? You know, that's when you sort of see those like Gillette ads, and you know, and some of those things come out where like people do that. And anyways, and so in that week when it was kind of in its most like brutal and raw, I remember thinking like, what can I do? Because now like I got to do something. I feel like I got to do something.
It's not just like you. And I don't do any of those things. I don't participate.
Well, it's
That's
like, how can I?
anymore.
Yeah, like what can I do? And so I remember thinking like, a T-shirt, cool, okay. All the profits go to a charity. That'll help. Cool. And I had one immediately. It was even on my hard drive already from an illustrator that's quite like politicized, Nana Fenta in Cape Town. And it was so simple. I was like, Nana, can we do the Jurassic patriarchy design?
Yeah.
Which is like a play on Jurassic Park, but of course the dinosaurs were like wearing suits, as in like, you know, let's try and make this kind of idea of the sort of toxic masculinity and patriarchy sort of become extinct. Can we do a Jurassic patriarchy tee? All money goes to charity. She's like, yes. And I was like, have you got a charity in mind? And she's like, I volunteered at Rape Crisis Center in Cape Town. They need all the money they can get. And I was like, done.
Lekker.
Put it out. And we made, it was like probably one of the biggest success stories in Limited Edish.
Dude, that's amazing.
And we were able to make, it was something stupid like 15,000 rand for this crisis center in the space of like a week. And I only stopped it because I was like, I need to kind of get back to my life. Like I can't give up too much to do this, because it was like days to fill out all the form, you know, fill out all the things, and I just thought like, fuck, I've got this thing that I've built. But like, we couldn't have done it that quickly or that easily in the start.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't figured out your shipping, and you haven't figured out your system of how you take the orders and how you get them placed, and your supplier and your bagging, and you know how you kind of do it, and how you recon, and how this person knows, how one knows how much profit there is. And so I was just so chuffed to be in that position. It's the same with the Bioscope. Like, we've built this thing. This is physical, you know. Obviously Limited Edish is a bit more figurative, but like, we've built the space. Now it's like, well, what can we do with it?
Dude, that's incredible.
So it's exciting.
But thank you so much.
Cool. I can just keep
that was a no, this could go on for hours.
Yeah. Man. No, magic, man.
Dude, that was amazing.
Cool. Yeah. Good luck with everything. Just give your name one more time.
Werner.
Werner. Okay, Rad. You know when you just like get, you know, you can't go like a minute longer without knowing the person's name or like just confirming it, and you're like, any minute longer it's gonna be weird.